Okay, it's 7 o'clock. I'm going to call the meeting of the Farmington Planning Board to order. Just want to verify everybody has signed in. I think everyone has. I'll go through the way we run these meetings, but we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. If everybody would stand, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, some administrative things. There is an exit over here. There's an exit as you came in over here. So if there happens to be any issue where we need to exit quick, follow Ron, because he's always the first one. So that's, yeah, he'll lead the way. Please silence your phones, smartwatches, all the other doodads you might have on you so that you don't interrupt the proceedings, please. Let's see. This meeting will be held in conjunction with the rules and procedures adopted by this board on February 2nd of 2022. And so the process we're going to go through is we have 2 public hearings and 1 final subdivision. So we'll go through each public hearing individually first, and then we'll go from there. We'll let the applicants talk about them, the applications, and then we'll let staff, and then we'll get public comment, and the board will have our discussion. So that's the process. So the first thing we have is approval of minutes. So did everyone get a chance to review the last minutes? Anyone have any comments? Do we have anyone, do we have a motion to approve? So moved by Adrian, seconded by Aaron. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, we have approval of minutes. Legal notices were published on Wednesday, April 27th of 2022. So the first order of business is PB 0803-21, and it is a preliminary site plan approval for safe place storage on Denny Drive in Farmington, New York. So we'll start, Don, with you telling us a little bit about what has changed and what got us to where I believe we'll be doing preliminary for next week.
Okay. I have provided plans back to the board,
Yep.
back to staff. I'm sure you guys have all reviewed that. There were an additional 44 comments that passed around. Some pertaining to preliminary, some pertaining to final.
Yep.
I know that we made an extraordinary effort on what we thought were all the items that were outstanding as far as the board is concerned. And we're looking for preliminary approval tonight. And with whatever discussion we have to get our resolution and down to the final few items that we have.
Okay, that's our goal as well. Okay, let's turn it over to staff, and we'll have questions or at least comments. And I believe we're going to go over this list of items at some point. And we'll start with Ron, our Director of Development.
Okay, I drafted a resolution.
Yes.
To the planning board to approve with conditions. The preliminary site plan for the phase 2 portion of the safe place storage. In addition to that, Don had responded to that draft resolution and provided responses to the comments that the town staff had provided back on April 18th. I have since reviewed those and have for you tonight a brief analysis. Most of the changes have been made to the drawings. There's still some outstanding issues that the town engineer is working on with the applicant, as well as some issues that the planning board has not yet discussed, which are identified here in the report. So I'm prepared to answer questions.
Okay, well, let's hear from Dan next from the building department, and then we'll go through these items, I guess.
Yeah, again, Ron summed it up nicely.
Also, the applicant has been working very diligently on
Yes,
updating what we've been asking for. There has been a lot of back and forth, so I do want to thank the applicant for working with the town. We do still have a list here that we do need to go over to speed this up. Just a couple outstanding things, a couple of things that we need input from the planning board on.
certainly.
And also MRB to report on for the planning board input as well. So
Okay,
I think we should jump into this real quick.
go for it.
So we're gonna go through sheet by sheet real quick. I know this is a little out of the ordinary, but I think it's important for this project. The first one's on sheet 1, has to do with the pocket pond, and this is actually something that they're working with MRB with stormwater. So I'm actually going to turn to Lance on that to just give us a update.
Sure. So as I mentioned in the previous board meetings, stormwater, in my opinion, is being addressed. Stormwater is not an issue for this site. It's being contained on site. They're going to comply with the town's requirements and the DEC requirements. Just for clarification, the pocket pond, if that is in fact what the question is, it has to deal with water quantity. That's where it's being stored before it gets released off site. I apologize. So, not fully understanding what the intent of that question as it relates to the town M4. I mean, MRB has been doing the stormwater review as it relates to this project. We've informed this board, I think now a couple of times, that stormwater is not an issue, that they're addressing it through the review. As you were aware, at this point in time, it's not 100% addressed. We're working towards that, which is typical of every project that we get. It won't be finally addressed until final plans and all the changes that incorporated or requested by this board are shown on the plans. But ultimately, our goal is to make sure that they're moving towards addressing it. Are they demonstrating the fact that they're able to, one, comply with the DEC standards, which they are, and are they intending to meet those standards? They are.
Okay. All right, so that's number 4 there is okay. So the next one is the streetlights.
Yeah, the question here is the proposed entrance doesn't show a street light to this entrance, and lighting is usually handled by you guys. I mean, we look at spread
Right.
that we see up on the screen. This does appear to be a dark area.
Well, I asked the applicant, what are your hours of operation? And do you feel you need some special lighting there so that people can see their punch in their code or whatever?
There is a light, a pole light. It's not shown here because it's not existing, but it's just across Hayride Drive that just lights the general area as you're coming in. We do not get really any traffic after dark. People just don't feel like going to the store and getting out after dark. But
It will be open 24/7.
they have access, but it's rare to see anyone pass.
Okay.
So
So you feel, in your opinion, that light gives enough light for them to see, to be able to access the code pad and everything else?
it is just about as close to the other entrance. These two, there's way two matching metal gates that are going to kind of face each other, and it's about as close to that one as it's going to that gate. We've never had any complaints about lighting at the facility ever, but I think that adequately on the private drive lights what we got to do.
Okay. Okay, Dan, next.
All right, the next one is the 20 proposed parking spaces. These are the spots that are along Denny Drive that back out onto the drive. There's also some drainage there. Again, I'm going to refer over to MRB on this.
Yep.
So it's my understanding that it is not a code requirement for them to provide this employee parking, that it was really generated by the board and staff to accommodate what we've become accustomed to seeing along Denny Drive, which is on-street parking, which is what we're trying to prevent. So working with the engineer on our suggestion is relocate those parking spaces either to the proposed on-site area or to the existing on-site area, inside the fence area off that street, because the drainage area in there is being used as part of other drainage mechanisms as part of the original approval.
Not a problem, guys?
We found a place inside of phase 4, inside the fence line, so we can relocate the entire parking area. So
Can I make the suggestion that they show that for the final application?
Please.
we'll put that on the overall plan.
Yep.
That's in the old site?
For inside the fence.
Okay, next item up, Dan.
Yep, the proposed grading, we go to sheet 1A. This is for the employer parking, which I think has been now resolved, so
Yep.
we're gonna skip right over that. Sheet 2, this is again the stone parking area. I think there was some confusion here. We were asking about the turnaround of being a stone area for the turnaround of the plow.
The stone area is fine because we're not gonna be plowing it, we're just turning around.
Turn around.
So
So that one's good.
the stone area is perfect.
All right, so that one's addressed. Siding gate to entrance to phase, the boats are located within the bio retention area.
It's been moved now, because we gave more distance. I pushed the whole fence and gate up as far north as I could on the approach coming in. I had it further down to the south. Now that it's pushed up, it doesn't.
All right.
So that's gonna show on the preliminary, right?
Yes, it's been on the recent plans that I provided. It's shown.
Okay. Okay, next one, Dan.
Yep, the swing gate over the sanitary, this one has to do with the plungers that go down into the ground. Water and sewer is not here tonight, but their comments were that nothing to go down in the ground. But these are only to hold that gate, so they'll swing all over the place.
So it's already saying it's like 6 inches to 7 inches, 8 inches, which is more than enough to be above the force main, but obviously the only change that could occur is once the force main, which has not yet been located, has been located by the town and the depth verified. Obviously, if it's that shallow, we're gonna have other issues that we don't resolve, so this right now is not an issue.
I would say that maybe a comment could be put on the final application, just saying that after we locate the force main and we know the depth, that there would be a plunger going only 6 inches or a foot or whatever.
And that location and depth has been approved by the water and sewer department.
It only takes 2 inches,
Fine.
most plungers. I'm saying.
And I don't think it's gonna be an issue, but if you just say that the water and sewer superintendent has agreed and signed off on it, I think we're golden on that.
All right, the next one is snow storage. It's proposed over the easement, and then, which storing on the easement is not the issue, but the removal, if it needed to be, could it be put into the pocket pond?
Yeah, so what the design rule is you can place it on or in front of the ponds. We have been suggesting through our review with the town of Farmington to not do it directly on the facilities, because then we're transversing across the top of the bank and causing disturbances. We don't want that. So as long as the snow storage area has been identified, either A, on site somewhere that doesn't impact fire code and emergency vehicle apparatus, or 2, in front of the stormwater mechanisms, then we're good.
And that's where it's showing right now.
Okay, good.
All right,
Next.
the easement, that goes into the propane tank down Denny Drive. Now that the applicant owns both sides and technically the private road, we wanted to make sure there was an access easement. And that it's shown on
The site plan shows a 50-foot wide access and utility with the library page on it.
Yeah.
It's always been shown. That's why I didn't understand what that counted.
Okay, now, I've been saying, okay, I understand that. Make sure the board understands. If you've got questions, go ahead and pipe up. I guess because I've lived this thing for so many weeks here, I've read and reread and all of that, so pipe up if you have any comments, please.
and we're going to get into the board stuff here
Right,
a lot sooner than later.
okay, next item up.
The next item up has to do with the 2 fire hydrants. The town shows that there's 3 fire hydrants out there, but we don't see them shown, all 3 of them located on your site plan.
I think the one that's missing was off of Commercial Drive.
There's one here,
Yep,
there's one down here.
I think that's the one that's missing on some of your plans.
I can add it to the overall plan.
All right, so that will then fix that. The other thing the fire marshal was bringing up that I know that you're working with him is the gap between That's taken care of? Okay, and that will be shown on your preliminary. Sorry.
This is gonna be on prelim.
Okay, so yeah, great. I'll get
Okay.
you 1 second then. Buildings B, C, and D, are showing at 7,200 square feet right now.
Yeah.
They are putting a 5-foot gap in those buildings to get them under the 6,000, so they do not need to put sprinklers in them per our new sprinkler regulation. So they
Dan,
will,
is that what's with the, I'm sorry to cut, is that what the dotted line?
The 2 dotted lines with 5 foot apart.
That's the gap.
yeah,
Yeah, the floor, the concrete floor will be poured all the way through. They're just gonna build 2 buildings 5 foot apart.
So there'll be a wall there, like you have, like you
No,
walk.
Like you can walk right
You can
through.
look, it's like a sidewalk, but you can walk right between.
I just want to verify how that gap is.
the 5 feet, it will be like, perfect analogy is a sidewalk in between the two. You had a question.
I do believe on the commercial drive plans, that, though, that's a more closer view of everything. 40 scale or whatever, 30 scale, whatever, that has that hydrant, because all those utilities are all shown, because I connect.
Okay, well,
So
It
that's on
was,
those
I think it was on
plans as
some plans.
Yeah.
It had some, not all.
well. Yeah.
all right, moving on. The existing 6-inch sewer line ends in the proposed employee parking. Now, is this addressed with parking removed?
Yes.
Yes.
That's right.
Okay, so that one could be. All right, sheet 4, the cut and fill. This is a requirement of town code, that we do need to see that information. Unless it's a planning board opts not to see that it's not a balanced site or what's happening with the fill. I know usually you guys call out where your topsoil piles have to be when they're cutting and filling. And
Because we've had some good experience with topsoil piles.
So as,
Lance has got some.
so as it relates to cut and fill, most sites are not balanced enough, just it is what it is.
Right.
So I know they're bringing fill in. What we asked Don to do is place a note on the plans that says if there is a remaining balance, that it's to be trucked off site in accordance and work with the town code enforcement officer.
And just so you know, construction wise, sequence wise, this project, even though he's not gonna construct all those buildings at once, much
Right.
like he did his first phase, the earthwork and everything will be done at all, it's an overall project. So he's gonna cut, fill, topsoil, stone, pave, he's gonna pave as he goes along too.
Mhm.
But it'll all be stone and all of that, all we're establishing goes out as MFD.
So let me just make a comment. Stabilize the area that is going to stay for a period of time. Having that issue right now with a couple projects, make sure it's stabilized. If you're not gonna work it for more than a few weeks at a time, just don't get caught up in that, because we had a lot of experience with that recently, and it hasn't been good experience, so please do that.
We wanna close out the stuff that's.
I understand. Okay.
all right, moving on, the next one's on sheet 4, or we're on sheet 4, I apologize about that. This has to do with the slope coming off of the left and at the corner of Glm and Commercial, that a guardrail would be required. I know MRB has done some research because
Yep.
of town standards, and I'll let Lance comment on that, and then I'll let Highway comment on their thoughts.
So the town does not have a set of standards in terms of when they require, but what we do, excuse me, what we do is we refer to the New York State DOT requirements and guidelines when they suggest one should be incorporated. The other alternative to that is the highway superintendent obviously has jurisdiction over that as well. And then if there is concerns raised by staff or the board, that is obviously something that we can look into as well. So when the question was raised as whether it was required, we looked into the DOT regs and we verified that based on the slopes being 1 on 3, based on majority of the slope having a height less than 15 feet, and that it's sufficiently set back from the travel lane of 32 feet, that it wasn't warranted based on the guidelines that we work with, which is the DOT regs. Now, if there is still safety concerns, like with the Country Max, there was some berming that was done. It doesn't have the same safety rating that a guide rail has, but that might be an option if the board and or staff feel that something needs to be done there in lieu of a guide rail. If a guide rail is required, we made some suggestions that we're gonna have to look into is the relocation of the poles that are out front. This isn't a deterrent. I'm just saying that if it is required, this is what would have to be done. Can it be done in the right of way? If it is, the poles would have to be relocated. Can it be done on site? If it does, then we're gonna need an easement for town for maintenance purposes, and it's probably gonna have to run all the way down the road to the countryman site. That's just, we don't want dead points of that, of the guide rail, and then so on. So our email to the town was basically, is it warranted based on our review of the DOT regs? No, it's not. Should there be something out there? I leave that up to the highway superintendent and the planning board to determine.
I guess Tim, you're.
Yeah, this was brought to my attention on Monday, about the maybe a guardrail being warranted there on Collette Road because of the steep slope. Maybe I'm new in this position, I didn't have a lot of knowledge in this matter, so we reached out to Lance and he got back to me this afternoon. So with his recommendations and the guidelines of what the state was, I'm not going to require guardrails to be put in.
Okay, all right. Board have any comments about that?
Okay.
The only thing that I was going to say is that if you guys have excess topsoil on the site, you might consider berming it a little bit, because if somebody did for some reason come over there and came down there, the cost of repairing fence and buildings would be significantly more than putting a berm up through there. So I'm not saying do it, I'm just saying you might consider that if you have excess topsoil. So just a thought as I was thinking about this. So Dan, go
You're
ahead.
good with that one then?
Yeah, I think we're good, yeah. Nobody has an issue.
The next one has to do with erosion control with parking. Again, now that parking's moved, I mean, Lance, do you think this one's addressed?
Yeah, I think I had talked to staff a little bit about some of the concerns. I believe their construction sequence and their plans as proposed demonstrate what we would typically require as part of the erosion and sediment control issues that would be warranted. However, obviously, once we move forward, we'll continue to look into that because things change based on plan to plan. So it's an ever evolving process, but I believe what has been shown on the plans to date that we've reviewed meets the criteria for erosion sediment control measures.
Okay.
All right, moving on to sheet 5. The site entrance, we're back to that. Looking to see, we talked about the lighting already there for the keypad, but this is now just talking about the sliding security gate. Doesn't show any lighting around it. We're looking for planning board input on that.
I think you guys said that you thought that there was enough lighting there already. I can't see requirement to put some extra down. What's the board thing?
I think once they have the levels shown on these contours, that kind of.
I think we can clean that up on final,
Yeah.
once we see the lumen patterns and the rest. So let's consider that for a good review on final, okay?
I'm sorry, just to add, just make sure, because we do have a lighting plan that shows lumen patterns, but I think what you're saying is shows that in the existing lighting, right? Because that was one item that they said isn't shown on this plan, was the existing lighting.
Or where the levels are too much. I don't.
So they give us the foot candles, that's what those lines are around the building. Those are
Are
the foot
they 1
candles.
foot candle, 2 foot candle? I
Well,
guess that's what I was,
I agree, so that's what I'm looking for, I'm looking
Yeah.
for clarification.
Yeah,
Just a little more detail on the lighting plan itself.
yeah, just because of the. such-
And we didn't get these till I think Monday and that,
I
so
totally
it's not something we got in time for an in-depth review.
But I think what we're asking for is, I would say a detail of your foot candle so that we have a typical, and have it updated to show the existing lighting out there. So the board has the whole.
And you know the specific areas that we're concerned about. Okay? All right.
Oh, Ron, did you have a comment on that? No, okay. There's no light shown at the entrance at Denny Drive.
Same thing.
Same thing, I think that would be addressed in.
For final, we'll look at the detailed lumen pattern.
All right, landscaping, I believe it's being addressed in the draft resolution that Ron put together.
Right, I
So-
think the draft resolution says that for Doug to look at it, I'd like to add Aaron to that. Doug and Aaron both work with the developer on the landscaping plan. Okay?
And I-
So, John, if you change that to both Doug and Aaron.
Mr. Chair, Chairman, I know that a lot of times landscaping, you guys look at that more final.
We do look at it more fine, yeah,
So would that be a final?
that's a fine.
Okay.
Doesn't mean, well, yeah, that's what we're really looking
Dave,
for.
can we go back one, quick?
Yeah,
Number
absolutely.
3, that lighting at entrance of Kenny Drive, isn't that what he's already talked about, it's pre-existing, that he says it's enough light going both driveways, or?
Well,
So I just trying to get some clarification.
Yeah, I don't want to speak for you guys, but I thought you mentioned earlier, there's an existing light across the street of Vinnie Drive that currently isn't shown on the lighting plan, that once you show it, then with the foot candle patterns that we asked for more detail on being provided, the planning board would have more information to determine whether they feel it's adequate lighting or
And there's a stand on the commercial drive, plan.
not. I would suggest any and all lighting that are existing, I would show them.
Yeah, we added a proposed light.
Yep.
And I think there's a second one down here, we added another one, so there's 2 street lights.
Show them all.
Yeah, we'll have to see that, but, okay, I'm good, sorry.
okay, that's all good. So the outdoor storage, which is between A and F, appears to be a dark area. The question is, should there be lighting out there for security purposes, or does this need to be lit?
Well, and I guess that would be up to the applicant, but my concern would be if you've got RVs and boats there and somebody hops the fence and starts tearing stuff up, and stealing stuff out of them, then jumping the fence with whatever they could find, lighting would help you with your camera situation possibly and seeing stuff. So it's a consideration for security. It's your business plan, I think. I don't know how the rest of the board feels. It's your business plan, but I think you might want to consider some lighting just so your camera systems work better in case you get some, it kind of keeps honest people honest. I hate to say it that way, but what's the board think?
What's the distances, but I don't know if you, I guess you have to decide that.
Yeah, there's building lights there. There's very good nighttime cameras that see just as well at night as they do during the day. As far as I know, never had anyone shut up our fences. We have outdoor storage at other facilities and don't have any lighting for the outdoor storage at those facilities that has that issue. So, if it became an issue, we would be adding lighting.
You're doing pretty good with
That
that.
issue.
It only takes one, right?
I would agree that.
It's
Lighting
not
probably is
common
not as common practice for outdoor
Okay.
storage. It is up to Paul. I guess you'll need to make that decision before final, because if you're gonna put up one pole light somewhere there, you're gonna have to show how it's gonna shine or however you wanna do it, so.
Okay.
That'd be up to you.
So we'll leave it over to you guys and we'll look at that again with the lighting at the final, if you decide to.
A reminder, back to the original public hearing on this, we did have a resident come in from Redfield worried about lights.
Yeah, this wouldn't be one that was.
Right, no, I'm just,
Yeah,
as we're talking about
Right.
lighting, I want to make sure that we keep that in the back of our mind.
I agree.
I would see Paul not doing it right now, that's what I would. As he said, other facilities he has doesn't have it, and general practices, most places don't.
If you needed something, there's always the solar motion activated
Yes.
stuff that would be considered as well.
Yeah.
Ron's got something.
Ron?
Yeah, just if you think you're gonna need it, show it. If you don't show it and you want it, you're gonna come back.
Okay.
Sure, so you could do something temporarily, say it's there, but not put it in
If needed.
if needed, I don't know, but you figure out, Paul.
Number 6, right?
Number 6, this is over on the emergency entrance, which is way down by the propane. Wanted to know if we should consider lighting there for the emergency entrance. We got the fire chief here today. I don't know what your thought about having that lit, or if it's.
You guys bring enough lights, don't you?
Well, our new rescue.
I'm gonna say. You light up half of Farmington with that thing.
Certainly lighting is an issue, so we can see what we're doing, but, I guess having a light there by itself, yes and no, but if there is no light there, we're certainly gonna, whoever gets there first is gonna set it up, so we'll light it up nice and bright.
Yeah.
So I guess that's.
And that one picture is pretty close, I think, on the building, honestly, I think once we see the levels, I think it's.
Well, and that one location will be something that the residents definitely will see. That light is
Yeah,
beyond
that's
everything
true.
that we have. There's no protection of screen here and.
Very definitely. Because it cuts right through there, they
That's
see it right through by
Most
this
residents will see it.
other building back there.
There's a couple lights out.
Yeah.
Next door.
Yeah.
It would light it up enough that
Like you said, when
they
they
don't
go
need
in,
full.
they'll have light everywhere.
Plus they got lights on the trucks as they're coming in. I mean,
We're gonna-
just
we're gonna
the
position-
headlights will light it up enough. Yeah, we'll open the gate.
To light it up if we have.
Yeah.
So we're going to say that that's.
And just say, Aaron, what do you think about that?
With that light pole right at the corner there, light coming off the building, I'll just, wait till final.
Okay.
Take a look at final.
And the lights coming off the truck. I mean, the headlights on the truck should be enough to illuminate the gate enough to open the gate and get in. They're not gonna sit there for very long.
All right. So,
Okay, we're good?
the last two on here for sheet 6.
Yeah.
Has to do with details. Some of the details that weren't shown, we requested MRB to provide the applicant our details.
Send them already.
We sent them to.
He sent
They
them
have
to
this
me.
right.
So you're taking care of those for
Yeah.
final?
Yeah, I've received, yeah.
Okay, so for final for both of those, right? Okay, anything else from staff on this?
That's all I have.
Okay. Let's go back to Ron. Ron, what do you think? Good, did good? We covered everything?
Yeah.
Covered everything. Okay. All right, Dan?
No, I'm good. I think everything's in the minutes. It sounds like the majority of it is for final. There's gonna be a couple things that will have to be for preliminary for you guys to sign it, but it looks like those are very minimal. And, I think we're in a good spot.
So we'll get this thing rolling. Tim from Highway,
I'm good.
you're good. Lance,
Should I count?
anything additional from Fire?
Well, obviously, easy access or access that doesn't destroy stuff, and then, you know, we try not to do that as a regular process, but Knox box, something
Oh, yeah.
that would allow us to do a conventional way of opening the gate with a, you know, access. We'll get through it, but it may take time.
And that's a promise.
So, it's, you know, I don't know if they acquire an application for that yet.
Yes, we cover that on the building permit, so as soon as they do the building permit, we'll have them submit for Knox box as well.
Okay.
But our fire marshals already discussed that with the applicant, so they're well.
Yeah, and I figured as much, but I haven't been to the last couple of meetings, so I apologize, but,
Cool.
you know, that's always.
Okay, this is a public hearing. Do I hear anyone in the room that would like to speak for or against this application? Again, we're talking about safe place storage. Anyone like to speak for or against this application? Okay, online. Do we have anyone online like to speak for or against this application for safe place storage? Anyone online want to speak for or against this application? Okay, let's go to the board. We'll start with Aaron.
My only concern on this is the dumpster. I know we're gonna have a resolution when this is all said and done, that nothing will be stored outside. Every time I've gone by, there's something stored outside, so if it's an issue you think you're gonna see in the future, maybe consider expanding the gated area of that dumpster.
Now, outside the storage, I'm gonna talk to Dan. I'm gonna interrupt that. He said, bring in pallets. What can and should we do with pallets on this site?
You already covered that in your special use.
Okay, the special use permit said no pallets. Okay, never mind. So we got no pallets,
So
and you got everything inside the covered area.
special use does cover it.
Yep.
I would still like to see on final, because it has been a concern of this board. Again, the reinforcement of it, just to give the code enforcement to come out and say to Paul,
Okay.
hey, Paul, you agreed to this. This is, I've got to keep it clean.
Agreed. And as Aaron and I were talking before the meeting, if the size of the enclosed area is okay now, great. If you think it should be bigger, now's the time to make it bigger, so that you don't have to come back in later for some additional, so just a thought. But Aaron, anything?
That is all I.
Adrian?
No, I just want to see more of the lighting stuff and now where you're gonna put your employee cars on your other site or whatever, just want to know all that before final, otherwise I think we're good moving forward where we're at.
Hey, Doug,
No, I think most of the stuff I had about previously, and this is just, I mean, we'll work through the rest of the stuff, final, and like I said,
Okay.
we'll work through. So,
Tim?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. The only additional thing that I could think of as we're talking about this is make sure if we didn't, and I don't remember it, make sure you have very clear definition of where you're parking your moving trucks. On that, I think that was on there, but I'm not 100% sure. We want to make sure we see where that is. Dan?
A reminder, the board has always requested in the past, elevation drawings for final.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And materials,
Oh, yeah.
what these things are gonna look like.
Colored renderings with some sample products, so that kind of thing. Shouldn't be hard.
Well,
It's just, it's basically what you have already there.
right, you can drive down there.
Exactly. Exactly. And we probably already have numerous times. That's why we keep talking about storage outside the area. So, anything else, Dan? Okay, this is a public hearing. If I missed anyone who wants to speak in a public hearing one more time. Okay, I'll take a motion to close the public hearing. Moved by Doug, seconded by Tim. Any other comments? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. What do we have? We have a resolution to preliminary site plan approval with conditions. The applicant has read this. Do you have any issues with this?
Are these different than the ones that I?
Same one, the same basic one, very generic, but we know from our minutes exactly what we talked about, okay? So the applicant is comfortable with this, so with that, do I have a motion to approve the draft resolution with conditions and waive reading? Motion by Tim, second by
Aaron?
Aaron, any other comment? Clerk, take a roll call vote, please.
DeLucia.
Aye.
Doug Beats.
Aye.
Aaron Sweeney.
Aye.
Adrian Bellis.
Aye.
Ed Hunter.
Aye. Preliminary has been granted. Get that done, we'll get in for signatures, tidy up for the final, we'll get that stuff around, get the town to figure out where that port main is, and we'll be able to move forward.
That would help.
Okay, thank you for putting up with us on this one, but I think we got where we need to go. Thank you. Okay, the next item up, I think, is what most people are in here in the room for, is the new subdivision public hearing, PB 0501-22. Preliminary 48 lot re-subdivision public hearing. This has to do with Farmbrook. Let's see, this is 7. Which area is this? 7A. There you go. Farmbrook Phase 7A. Okay,
All right, so good evening. I'm Patrick Labor from Schultz Associates.
Patrick.
And I'm sure most people are very familiar with Farmbrook. So when this subdivision was first created, it was done in a very different way than we do these days. All 200, 400 lots were created pretty much all at the same time in the 70s, early 80s. So all the lots down here on 7B, all the lots here on 7A exist today, even though there's nothing on them. There's still a question of whether or not the right of ways exist, but we're working through that to see where we go from there with the town board on that. Came in a few years ago looking to develop the second half of 7B. The stormwater regulations require that for everything that we need to do now, we need to provide some kind of stormwater quality quantity control. So that stopped us for a while. In the past few years, we've been looking at this on and off, trying to figure out what we could do. We went and talked to the landowner to the east to try to do a regional detention facility. They weren't interested at the time to do anything down there. So we sat for a little bit longer, and then we thought, well, let's look again and see if we can make this work on site in these two phases. And what we're proposing now is to take 7A, which is Alfalfa Crescent, those 46 lots, reconfigure that with the Alfalfa Crescent right-of-way roadway in a way that provides a new lot that would be part of the association between 7A and 7B that would have a stormwater management facility that then would handle the remainder of the undeveloped site. So the owner went to the homeowner association, showed that with a member of our office also showed that to them. And we got a letter to submit on their behalf for this, since they are a landowner for this application also. So basically what we're doing is same number of lots proposed in 7A as what's existing, 46 lots. This existing homeowner association lot up here would be the 47. That is being resubbed from what we're showing here and creating the 48th new lot, which would just be for the pond and would be owned by the homeowners association. All the new lots would all be single family residential, just as they are now. We made them uniform 120 by, I think, 64, where some of the lots before varied a bit in size, but tried to keep the lot count the same. It really, if you can see here, this gray area, those are the existing lots as they are today. This is the existing right of way in the lake. This is where the new back of lot lines would be on the west side of the Alfalfa Crescent lots. So it is pushing closer to Hayride Drive, the back of those lots, but there will still be all this white area here will still be left untouched. So I don't know how far, I think this, we're just speaking to the subdivision, re-subdivision tonight, so I won't get too far into site plan. We're just starting this process now, trying to find a way to make this work. Like I said, this has been ongoing for several years now. The developer that originally was doing this passed away. His daughter's trying to finish it now. So this is what we've come up with to try to make this work and get this finally done.
Right, okay. Now, for all the people that are here to listen to this, I'll let you know the process. And Ron's going to give you the details of what we're doing tonight and where we're at. But because we're not going to actually approve anything tonight as it relates to the subdivision or any of that, doesn't mean we don't want public input. We're looking for your public input early, information, so that staff and the board can address those situations. So I will let Ron now tell you exactly what we're doing tonight and why we're doing it and how we're doing it. Ron.
Thank you. Yeah, Patrick is correct. The issue before us tonight is there's two parts. One is the re-subdivision of a section of Farmbrook that was filed with the county clerk's office, which showed a 50-foot right-of-way, which was never accepted by the town board for section 7A, Alfalfa Crescent. The drawings that you see realign that right-of-way, and in doing so, realign the lot configurations adjacent to it. Because of the size of the project, it falls now under a class 1 action under Seeker. And as such, Seeker is the state environmental quality review, which this board has to deal with every application. Requires a coordinated review with what's known as involved agencies. In this instance, the involved agencies are the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, which has the say over sewer, the New York State Department of Health, which has the say over public water, and also the town highway superintendent, which has the say, does this realigned road meet the town design standards, and the town water and sewer superintendent, who has to say over does the proposed solutions for the relocation of the utilities, the water and sewer lines, meet town standards. So those are the four involved agencies. There are other interested agencies, one being County Ag Enhancement Board because the site's adjacent to an ag district. The other one is the town board because at some point they're going to have to accept that dedication of the road and the letters of credit for construction of the road and all that good stuff. But that's down the road, okay, so to speak. Tonight, what we have to do is we have to start the seeker process. And in doing so, this board is declaring its intent to become the lead agency. Now, under seeker, when you have more than one involved agency, you've got to have somebody step up to the plate and say, okay, I'm going to be responsible for making the determination of significance. Normally, the planning board does that. They're the most directly involved, the most directly familiar with all the actions, all of the issues involved with the site development, and therefore it makes sense. And believe me, the state agencies love to have the local boards do it, become the lead agency. So the action tonight that we have is to declare our intent to be that lead agency, to set a public review and comment period, which will end in June, and to continue the public hearing on this application at your second meeting in June, which I believe is June 20th? 15th. Okay. So the next time anything happens on this project will be on June 15th. And at that time, the planning board, if they have no objections from any of these other agencies, will declare themselves the lead agency. They will then review the criteria in the state law to determine if that's being met. And if it is, then make a determination of significance. Now, once that's done, then they are able to move forward with taking into account all the public comments received during the public hearing tonight, during the 30-day public review period, and issue a conditioned preliminary site or subdivision plan approval. That subdivision plan approval then, all the details that are required to be shown, the nitty-gritty, if you will, from the departments on the size of the water lines, the fire hydrant locations, the snowplow turnarounds, you name it. Okay, a whole litany of things. As you heard somewhat late earlier tonight on that previous application, a lot of detailed analysis goes into all this. And with that, then they grant preliminary approval with conditions. The applicant agrees to those conditions. It's preliminary plat's signed, then there's a final. Final normally isn't subject of a public hearing, but who knows? Whatever happens, happens. It has been in the past and has not. It's dependent on what's going on. So what we're looking at here is a process that probably at the earliest you would see final approval in August. That's a shot in the dark. I have no idea what's going to come out during the public comment time. And then they would have to finalize the final plans, file them. They would have to get resolutions by the town board to authorize the dedication of the road. The highway superintendent would have to issue his documents indicating that this has been approved for a public road, that's going to be used for a public road. There would have to be a letter of credit established for constructing the roads, both in section 7A and section 7B, Meadowbrook Lane. And before anything else, there would be a pre-construction meeting, at which time everything would be laid out on the table as to who's doing what, when they're doing it, and how it's going to be completed. And a notice to proceed by this guy over here, and Del Priori is issued, and work begins. So most likely, a lot of this work is going to start with the installation of water and sewer lines, drainage improvements, things of this nature that would probably take place this fall. I know the highway superintendent would love to have a road basin before the plant's closed, but sometimes that doesn't work. We'll have to just see where it goes. But I can tell you that before any building permits are issued in the remainder of section 7B or section 7A, that all of the dedicated improvements, whether it's water lines, sewer lines, highways, sometimes it's street lights, sometimes it's sidewalks, depending on what's involved. All of that has to be taken care of. All easements have to be taken care of. All of the legal paperwork, a lot of complicated stuff, way beyond tonight's public hearing opening, to make sure that we have the surety in place to be able to go in there and complete this work if we have the developer or the applicant decides to go south. So there's a lot to this process, and I've only skimmed the surface. Believe me.
Yeah.
The devil's in the detail.
Ron, do we think that this will generate the need for an additional traffic study?
No.
Okay, I just want to get that on the table. We are in a public hearing. I know we've got people here. Okay. I just want to-
We're not, what we're looking at is a lot line adjustment.
Okay.
We're not increasing the number of lots, as I understand it.
It's still based on the original plan from the 70s
Right.
with the number of lots that were already approved. We're just changing lot lines around.
Yeah, we're not increasing the number of building lots.
Right.
So there's 46, there'll be 46. We're just adding an extra HOA lot.
I just want to get that now.
Right, because of the
It's splitting it.
Yeah.
splitting.
Okay. Dan?
All right,
Thank you.
no, Ron summed up a lot there. What I want to talk about is, we are talking about subdivision. I always say, we're drawing lines on a map. At this point, we're not getting into the weeds of a site plan or any of those details, but this one's a little backwards for us because we already had a subdivision, now we're modifying it. So that led into some more questions for us. And the big one is, what's driving this move? And the driving factor to re-subdivide is stormwater.
Right.
And so the question I had, and I posed to our town engineer, is this doesn't make any sense to happen if stormwater doesn't work. So I'm not going to go into any more detail than that, but I'm going to refer it to our town engineer, because I asked him to do all the research and let us know, does this make sense?
So let's talk to Tim first, then we'll go to Lance. Tim?
Yeah, I mean, I've had the concerns about the stormwater too, as deal with a lot of water issues up in Farmington already. And as with the road, Ron mentioned the snowplow turnaround, improvement there. I'd like to see, all of El Paso Crescent rebuilt, even the section that's already in there, to include the whole road. So,
Cool. Anything else? Hey, Lance, talk a little bit of, I know you're gonna talk about a lot of things to do with stormwater, but put in perspective this phase of the project based on the other phases that have already been built many, many years ago, and how the interaction is, because we know we have some water issues already in previous, sections. Now we're building this section. There are different stormwater regulations out there, and I'll just set that up and leave it.
Sure. So the original overall approval, as mentioned earlier, 70s and 80s, there wasn't stormwater requirements. And as they started to develop, which wasn't until the 90s, this was before all of those requirements came into place. So a lot of the detention and retention and water quality things that I'm going to talk about this section were not required as part of the previous sections. So what happened is when they came back in, I'm speaking in the past because this has come in numerous times before tonight for dialogue purposes. It was identified that since the 90s, Farmington has become an MS4 agency. DEC,
MS4 stands for.
MS4 municipal separate storm sewer system. So basically, we monitor and maintain our own storm sewer responsibility and permitting process. But ultimately, and that's just a component. It means that we have the same jurisdiction that DEC does when it comes to stormwater and implementing stormwater requirements. But as it relates to this project, it was identified early on that they were going to have to meet the current DEC requirements for this project, even though they had standing in terms of the subdivision was already filed, which is one of the prerequisites that DEC uses for, let's say, a preliminary overall project that comes before you and it has multiple phases. They don't, once they get it approved, because it might take 10 years to get through that approval, they get grandfathered into whatever that requirement was at the time of approval was. And then 10 years from now, we don't implement that new requirements because they're grandfathered in and they have a permit that allows them to do that. This doesn't have a permit. This was before all stormwater requirements. And it was because it was back in the 80s and it's a known drainage issue with the town. And the town being, like I said, an MS4, we're holding them responsible for at least doing what they can to meet or exceed the stormwater criteria as it stands today for any new development. So with that being said, we've done a review of the application, and I can say that Schultz Associates, I'm surprised. I'm not surprised in your ability, but surprised because it has been a struggle that they are most certainly attempting to meet and or exceed the stormwater criteria as it relates to all of the development that they're proposing. So everything new, they're attempting to capture, treat, and hold back so that when water hits the ground and runs off the site, it's at the same rate as it is today, or better than, meaning slower than. So that the impact at those trigger points that we're currently seeing shouldn't be worse. It will be better or the same as you currently see it. Now, with that
Let me re-summarize it for just 2 seconds. So this phase of the way the building is going to be done here, no additional stormwater will run off of this site than is doing today. That's the whole concept of our stormwater management program, is to keep, retain, filter, condition the stormwater so that nothing more, even though you've got more impervious surface and more different things like that, it's not going to flow more off onto somebody else. That's the concept. Okay, thanks. I just wanted to summarize that in my terms.
No, good. So I want to make it clear that, at this point in the process, we still are working with the engineer to refine those calculations in the runoff. But the attempt right now is that every new lot that's being proposed is being treated. So that all the impervious surface that's being added or the hard surfaces in terms of roofs and runoff is being directed to a facility, retained in that facility so that it's being released at a rate less than what it currently is today. Now, with that being said, there's some existing lots that they're also trying to capture as part of this. So there are several existing lots along, I apologize because I don't see the map in front of me, it's a roadway that where it was already filed. Some of those lots have already been constructed. Meadowbrook, thank you. Some of those lots are, because of the storm sewer system, are being connected, and some of that runoff is being treated through their system. So they are actually encompassing some of the existing lots. So with that being said, what we're trying to review is, one, are they meeting the criteria as it relates to this project? I would say they are. They're moving towards that direction. We're confident and comfortable with what's being proposed. It's got to be refined. There's still some issues that we got to work through, but that's something that we're working with them on. The second part is yes, there's a drainage area of significant issues. So we're also looking into, is there any way that we can do something additional beyond this that might allow us to treat or capture or hold back other runoff from other existing parts of the site. That's something that we have to continue to work through and work with them on. I know there's some other HOA land that earlier on, we call it the triangle piece. It's right, it's adjacent to another development. It's on the eastern side of the site. Exactly, thank you. So it's one of those lots where it's outside of our control and maybe outside of their control, but that's one of the lots that's remaining that where drainage is funneling through. That might be an alternative to at least do something additional to hold back water. But with that being said, there's existing trees there, which is also beneficial. So you would reduce the trees to put in a facility that ultimately has got to be maintained by somebody as well. So that's something that we have to weigh on.
Okay. Anything else from staff before we move to public comments? Now, let me remind everybody, we're going to handle this in a couple different ways. Start with the people in the room. I need you to state your name and your address. We'll give you 3 minutes or so to tell us what your issues are. And remember that this is the preliminary. We're kind of just talking more about the environmental quality review, but we want to hear all your issues so that as we move forward, we know what's on the table. So with that, I will start with the people in the room. Please raise your hand, tell us your name and your address, and go from there.
Solitaire Murphy, 1527 Meadowbrook Lane. Who is the developer of these houses that are about to be built?
Going to be the building.
We don't know who the builder is going to be yet. The developer right now is the landowner. It's ONL.
Really?
Oh, no, realty. Yeah, we don't know who the builder of the home is going to be yet.
Okay, now you've got two entrances and exits. You got the one on the left. Where does the one on the right come out?
They both come out onto Meadowbrook. The one on the right comes out near where Beanpole is. That's that loop road. You can see it over here. Yeah, that one cuts it off with the people there, but if you look at this, I don't know if you can see that. This one will come out right where the stub road is right now, right across from Beanpole.
Okay, so isn't it Clover Meadow though?
Clover Meadow is up here,
Up there.
and that hits Meadowbrook right in this location. So yeah, right where that dead end road is right now, that's what.
The houses that are being built, are the townhouses, regular
You
houses?
said they're going to be single family.
Single family. Just,
So like raised ranches, is that what you're talking about?
just whatever single family house someone comes up with that they can fit on that lot. So similar to what's there right now, probably similar to what was put up in Meadowbrook 10 years ago.
Will they, with all the extra houses in there, will we need another transformer to be added?
That'll be an RG&E issue. That'll be an RG&E issue, though, to make that determination.
Okay.
I can't speak for RG&E, but when they built the subdivision, they sized those things for full build out,
Right.
which included these lots at that point in time. But
So
it's
probably not,
possible.
but we don't know for sure.
Yeah, because the one on Meadowbrook Lane further up blew up, and it took 12 hours to find one to put in. So that's why
Doesn't
I'm
surprise
wondering. I hope this one works. Okay.
Anything else?
Nope.
Okay, next. Yes, sir.
William Hanson, 1569 Hayride Drive.
Yes, sir.
Question, I took a couple of pictures of this earlier, and I was wondering, is there something on any website that I can, look at the site map just for, if I talk to my additional neighbors?
And
Yeah, that, it's not on the website, but any of that is available to the building department.
At this,
At this facility, yeah.
okay.
if you can reach out to the building department, and if they don't have it in PDF form, they'll get it to you and they can email it to you.
Okay, and the second thing, with me living on the Hayride Drive, I noticed you got some green areas. Now, is this pretty much written in stone, gonna be adding parks, another park to Farmbrook?
There's
Nothing?
no proposal to add that.
No
Anything
proposal
in
at
there,
this
just-
time?
No, leave it brush and trees.
Okay,
Just to be clear though, Pat, I
Yeah.
apologize. That area that you pointed to, that's
Yeah.
currently the existing open space area,
Right.
correct?
Yes,
Owned by the homeowners association?
Right.
It's already owned by homeowners.
Is that ever gonna, I mean, potentially be opened up for?
You have to talk to homeowners association, I assume.
Right.
Their property, so I don't know.
Thank you.
Yep. Man,
Yes, my name is Carol Units. I live at 1540 Meadowbrook Lane.
man,
And my property is probably the lowest one on Meadowbrook right now. And
that's
I
not
get,
good.
no, I get all the water and erosion and stuff like that, so I got a problem with it. I'm not sure if there's something they can do to fix it right now or not.
Which side of the road are you on?
1540 Meadowbrook, I'm on the, I can check it.
Up right here, so right across from where that stub would be, that would head east.
Right now, my property's wet from stormwater coming off that field.
1540. So yeah, this would,
This is a problem right now.
right, so,
And there's a pile of dirt right
oh yeah, I know, it's 7 o'clock.
here, and that thing shouldn't be there.
So what would happen is, this whole rear area, I mean, we obviously wouldn't go into the property, but everything west of there is gonna go down into the pond gradually. It's not gonna be a steep slope, but you'll have positive drainage away from your property line.
So my
to the
elevation
west.
is going to be taken into account and all the existing homes that are on that.
Yeah, we already have all that information.
Yes,
So you're building a pond there?
Yes.
it's a pond, so is the pond lined, or are we gonna have a problem with the, water table level now? My sub pump runs constantly.
Okay. Yeah, this pond isn't gonna be super deep. Most of it, say from maybe 20 feet, 25 feet in from your property line, it's just gonna look like grass if it's mowed. It's gonna be 4 foot out to 1 foot going down, so it's gonna be very gradual going in. The actual water surface is only gonna be, I think it's right now, portion here and a small portion here. So most of it is gonna be, it's for the most part dry.
But the theory is it'll be better flow once that pile of dirt's removed and stuff like that.
Right.
So how does, all the water going into that storm drain,
Mhm.
what if it fills up?
Well, yeah, there's a couple things there to make sure that it's discharged safely. There'll be an outlet structure, basically a manhole, down on the north end. And it'll have a series of holes in it that will slowly let out the water during small storm events, your typical rainstorm. If that gets plugged for whatever reason, on the top of it is basically an open manhole grate, so 4 or 5 foot diameter hole. That'll let the water start going through that into the storm sewer system. If that should fail, for whatever reason, then there'll be a stabilized stone area where the water can head out to the roadway away from the houses and then discharge it that way. But that would be, go ahead.
So I was just gonna,
Worst
I
case
wasn't trying to
scenario.
interrupt you, I think you're doing a good thing. I just wanna make it clear that currently, everything is kind of flowing towards your house, right?
Exactly.
Right.
When this gets built, the idea is going to be conveyed to a system and sent away from your house
Right.
to the
But
pond
right now, is there any reason that you cannot move that pile of dirt
right now.
right now?
Okay, that's what
That might be a comment for the town. I mean, I don't know.
I will pass that on to the developer for sure and let them know. I can't answer that, but I'll let them know that that's an issue for you right now. But in the future, if this goes through, you're basically, that's gonna become a bowl in the middle there. So everything will drain away from all the houses bringing it.
Now, what's gonna be included in that storm, in that pond? Are you gonna get the downspouts of everybody, or are you gonna get,
Natural flow, I believe. Right?
It would be natural flow. We won't be piping anything. I suppose it would be up to the builder, but we're looking at it right now as downspouts heading to the grass areas and then with the grading back to the pond.
There's 2 reasons. One, we're obligated to design to meet water quality, and that's done through infiltration. So if everything is shot through a pipe, we don't get that infiltration. So by cutting it off and letting some of it flow naturally, again, the goal would be to grade it properly. That's something that we have to review it against to make sure it is. And something that he has to design for to make sure it is. And then the third component is making sure that it gets implemented in the field.
and one of the problems I have is the ground elevation. And the deeper that pond is, it's probably the better for my part.
What I think the idea that I think it's important to understand today is the goal of this project, what they're required to do is treat and mitigate stormwater produced from their site. So anything new, they're going to handle. What I'm trying to tell you guys is that they are actually going to handle some of the existing sites as well. And what it should do, what it's being designed to do, what we're trying to do, demonstrate through our review when we get there, it's going to redirect it away from your homes to this facility, which inevitably is going to have moments where it raises and flows through storm events. But we're obligated to make sure that it meets the criteria and sends it out so that when it hits that point of discharge,
Right.
it's less or the same or less than what it is today.
Right.
So it by default should improve the situation for some of you. It will not solve, make it clear, it is not going to solve all the drainage problems of Flower.
No, nobody's expecting that.
I know, but I put it
I
out
think
there.
I got it the worst though.
Yeah.
Well, this
All right,
is-
man, let me come back to you and let's see if anybody else in the room would like to speak for or against this project. Anybody else in the room? Don, go ahead.
Yeah, down here, 1602 Cornfield Circle. One question I have is that from that existing stub of alfalfa crescent, how far to the east is the proposed outfall structure?
Well, I think, it's hard to show up here, but the outfall structure, I believe, is right about here. So it would be. Yeah, it was existing lot 573, so you want to know from the intersection?
Basically, that property you're looking at right there on the corner of alfalfa crescent,
Mm-hmm.
that's my son's. I wondered how far to the east is from his property.
Oh,
He has issues down in his basement with the pump, and if you got an outfall structure down there, that water table there is going to be where the water's all flowing to and coming up to a higher elevation. When the outfall, the primary outfall is not working correctly, the water's going to get higher there, which is going to cause a most definite issue in that basement.
yeah. What we have, it's probably 30 feet off the line, 25, 30 feet off the property line. The elevation of this pond is down at the storm sewer, so yeah, it's not as deep as the basement, but it isn't at the surface.
My question there is, we're channeling all the water right directly to that end of the pond.
Yes.
You are draining it from this elevation.
Yep.
That means water staying at that elevation. That basement elevation is down there, which is constant flow of water into that basement.
The water right now is sitting at a much higher elevation than what we're putting it down to with this outlet structure.
And another point that I just wanted to make in there, you go along Hayride, Alfalfa Crescent, Meadowbrook, Clover Meadow, all of them backyards have a constant issue with water. And as you push them property lines closer to them properties up there on Hayride and Clover Meadow, along with all that other area that's developed, you have taken away a lot of the infiltration area. So I guess my point I'm trying to make to this board is a very serious consideration as to the water maintenance mitigation there. I foresee an issue in the first couple of houses right there from Alfalfa Crescent going to the east.
Well, I'm certain that our engineer will address that and it's, with all those issues, for sure.
Yeah, I want to assure you, we are taking that into account, seeing as we're getting closer. We have a full storm sewer system that we're looking at. It would be along that entire line over there on the west side. So anything that was infiltrating there now is going to be collected into a catch basin, into a pipe and going to that pond. So it's got a much more direct route, faster route of getting it out of there than it does right now. I walk that, and that is kind of a mess right now, up and down. There is a ditch through there, but getting to that ditch, it's all over the place. There's a hill in one part that's 10 feet high. I don't know what that came from, but it's all over the place. This will put positive grade to these catch basins. It can only help that area to clean it up and get the grade where it should be.
It'll put positive grade to that pond area. That said, you you will be directing the water, sheet water, to that pond area. That said, the base of that pond area and the outfall of that pond area will be 3 to 4 feet above all these folks based up in that corner of that pond.
All right, John, we got your comments. Thank you very much. Anything else you wanted to throw in there before we move on?
I got like 3 minutes.
Okay, you got your 3 minutes. Okay. All right, okay, let's go to online. Do we have, I'm sorry.
We do have a comment already in chat online.
Okay, let's start with our chat comment.
Yep, 1529 Meadowbrook Lane, is mentioning about her concerns with the traffic. The roads are pretty narrow and already experienced a fair amount of traffic. Also concerned about neighbors, with dump truck traffic with children, pets, and people walking. Was her first part of her concern.
Hey, Lou, but let's address that right away, and we'll go to Ron on that, because that's what I tried to get to earlier on. So Ron, can you address that? I mean, this was already approved for building, we're just changing lot lines.
Yeah, and one of the other positive things to address that concern is that we're now providing access to adjacent property to the south, which is owned by, I believe, Farmington.
Mhm.
And the town has, working with the state DOT, identified that as a route out to 332, so that you don't have to have all the traffic flowing through the entire project to get to this area. In the future, when something is proposed for that area, and I understand there are plans in the works now, that would allow a diversion of the traffic generation through Farmington. We also have another area out there in the north that's now connected with the running brook in that area that is available. So we have different points of access out of Farmbrook that previously were not anticipated back when they approved this. As you know, when we did Auburn Meadows, for example, we set conditions on the number of units that would be allowed before another point of access had to be provided to the public street. And we have that over there in Farmbrook.
Okay.
I will add also during our pre-construction meetings before any development, we talk about the routes in and out of these developments of how the construction vehicles can travel, dump trucks. And in an area like this, I would imagine that we would communicate that to the residents so they understand the route of travel for these equipment.
Right, and
Parking and storing of vehicles.
yeah, parking, storage, hours of operation, all those kind of things will be addressed then. Tim, from your standpoint, obviously, all these roads will be built to town standards, so they'll be typical subdivision roads, but they'll be built to town standards.
Right.
So the width and everything else will be,
With will be what it is now.
right, isn't it? Okay,
Probably better than what's out there now.
probably better than what's out there now. Okay,
All right.
what else was on that?
Yeah, her second part of her comment was, Ed, I think maybe you could address this to us. It has to do with taxes. Also, will this affect the taxes within the development?
The answer is basically no, because tax or your assessed value is based on market value. So if your house is worth more, then the answer is yes, you'll probably pay a little more in taxes. But it really is based on market value of your home and whether additional houses in here would increase your house value. I mean, that's really a flip of the coin, but I could almost guarantee you it won't go down. Put it that way, your house value won't go down. Taxes is a function of all the assessed values plus what the municipalities need to operate, and then it's broken down and subdivided that way. So.
All right, so that's that question. I do have another.
Okay, we have another question from online.
All right, the next one is from 1552 Meadowbrook Lane.
Okay.
Saying that online we can't see the new plans So if that's an issue and they want to see plans, contact the building department, we'll send a PDF to anybody.
And Dan, just give them all the phone number of the building department so they can reach out.
The town phone number is 315-986-8100. And then option 3 will get you to the building department, and any of the staff there will send out any of the information that you need.
Right, and we can either mail it to you or email it to you, whichever you prefer.
Yeah, but so he continues on with his comments here that he has water issues as well. Half of the backyard will flood from rain. He's wondering how far the easements from the back property will, and will there be any update to that? Are you looking for any easements or changes?
We're not.
To existing Meadowbrook?
Yeah, we're not looking to any easement changes on the existing Meadowbrook houses. And as we have it shown right now, that entire pond parcel would be an easement to the town because it's basically all, it would all be pond. So we're not looking, yeah, nothing from there.
Anything additional, Lance, on that? Okay.
All right, so the next one on here.
Okay.
Is 5770 Clover Meadow Lane. States, I would like to see this area finished. With all the other houses going up in the area, now would be the time. I agree that the updated area for stormwater would help improve the other conditions for residents. Not sure if it would be the one to ask, but could there be a walking path built connecting Meadowbrook to Oakfield?
That would be a homeowners association issue, wouldn't it? That'd be a homeowners association discussion. I would talk to the homeowners association, since they own all the open space in there anyway. I think that would be a homeowners association.
Well, it might be at the time when there's construction there to incorporate it. So.
Yeah, it'd be something between a developer and a homeowners association. Would be a good time to discuss that. Anything else online so far?
That was in chat.
Okay.
I would say that we could open it up to, if anybody wants to come off of mute.
Yes. If anybody else online would like to come off with me and ask a question, please do it now. Anyone online like to come off of mute, you have to unmute yourself so we can hear you, and then go ahead and state your name and address. I'm going to ask one more time, and then I'm going to move on. So anybody else online would like to unmute and ask a question? Okay.
I don't see anybody coming off of mute, and I will check the chat just one last time here. And I believe we've addressed everything in chat.
Okay, we've addressed everything in chat. We've asked online, we've asked in the room. Is there anybody else in the room that would like to make a public comment before I move on to the board? Okay. We'll start with Tim.
So I gotta wait for additional planning.
Yep.
Right, all the questions. I'm obviously interested in how that water mitigation is gonna work, and hopefully it'll be positive for the residents.
Okay.
This time, we're just kind of getting into this one, you know, with looking at this, I really, at this point, it's just a lot like it.
Okay, yeah. Adrian.
I do not at this time.
Aaron.
I have no remarks.
Okay, my only comment would be, and this is generally to the developer, anything and everything you can do to help mitigate some existing stormwater issues, we would appreciate. We understand that that is not necessarily the requirement as it goes forward, but anything you can do to help the residents, if you can move that pile of dirt, and it's going to help out her from not having her sump pump run constantly, please, anything we can do to help that out. We know that's been an issue. Certainly, town staff can tell you where the issues are. Your developer already knows, but just share that. So that's all I have. Anybody else have anything to add before I move it to the resolution? Okay, what I have in front of me is a resolution that would declare our intent to be the lead agency and send out a coordinated review letters to see what everybody else says. So do I have a motion to approve this resolution and waive reading. And we're continuing it to June 15, 2022 at 7 o'clock.
I moved to.
Moved by Adrian, seconded by
Aaron.
Aaron. Any other comments? Clerk, take a roll call vote, please.
Jim DeLucia.
Aye.
Doug Beats.
Aye.
Aaron Sweeney.
Aye.
Adrian Bellis.
Aye.
Ed Henry.
Aye. So, Ron, tell them what they should expect on June 15th.
Well, on June 15th, you should expect a resolution to identify any and all public comments that are received during this 30-day period from neighbors, residents of Farmbrook, or people in that area, be involved and interested agencies. And we will be looking to make a determination that night of what the impact of this project will be on the environment. And once we do that, then we should be in a position to grant preliminary approval with whatever conditions that come out of the public review period and staff review comments and other things.
So on the 15th, we would anticipate reviewing the environmental record and continue and basically making a determination on the environmental record, and then beginning the public hearing for the actual preliminary site plan. That comes down to all of the additional details or subdivision, I'm sorry, subdivision. Because do we even have, we still have to do preliminary site plan. So the next I'm sorry. The next would be the subdivision, and that should be theoretically relatively easy. It's just redrawing lines on a map. After that's complete, then we get into the actual preliminary site plan. That's where we look at the siting of the houses and all the other pieces, the lighting, the sidewalks, all of those types of things that go into that. That's the next step after that. So I just wanted you to understand that, so you know the process, what you're going to hear. And so we certainly love having you here. We love having an audience for change. So that'll be the end of that for tonight. So anyone that would like to leave, can go ahead and leave, and then we'll move into our next application. Thank you very much for coming by and showing your interest. Appreciate it. And for those online, thank you very much for your interest in this project. Okay? All right, let's get on so poor Mr. Capps can get out of here. We have a PB 0502. Yeah, just kind of keep it quiet as you're leaving. PB 0502-22, final 2-lot subdivision public hearing for David and Angela Capps. Let us know where we're at. We've got everything in, you turned everything in, and you feel everything's good to go. Ron?
We're good to go.
Good. Okay, Dan?
We're good.
Highway?
We're good.
Engineering?
Good.
Okay, this is a public hearing. Do I have anyone here to speak for or against this application for David and Angela Capps? Again, online and in the room. Anyone here want to speak for or against this application? Okay, I'll turn to staff. Aaron?
My issues were already addressed by staff.
Adrian?
I am all set.
Doug?
I'm all set.
Tim?
I'm good.
And I'm good. So we have a resolution with a few conditions. You've read those conditions. I assume everything's good? Okay, so I have a motion to approve this resolution with conditions and waive reading.
Motion by Tim.
Motion by Tim, second by Adrian. Any other comments? We'll take a roll call vote, please.
Jim DeLucia.
Aye.
Doug Beats.
Aye.
Aaron Sweeney.
Aye.
Adrian Bellis.
Aye.
Ed Henry.
Aye. See, you waited all that time for something that quick. Sorry about that. It is what it is. Okay, so you're good to go. Work with staff, and I guess the next step would be get those finals in, get them signed, so they can do a pre-construction meeting. Oh no, this is the subdivision. That's all it is. Lines on the map.
Right.
Okay. All right. Thanks a lot. See you later. Okay, next up is open discussion. Ron.
Okay, first of all, the town board at its meeting last Tuesday night continued the public hearing to an unspecified date for the incentive rezoning for Farmington Market Center. We asked for traffic trip generation data from Farmington GLN, which we have received. We've asked for it from Farmington Market Center, which we have not received. And we've asked for it from GNA, the Farmington Commons Plaza over there, which we have not received. Until all that data is in, and until there's been a meeting with state officials to discuss some of the issues associated with this, that's it. We're not going to continue any further until we get resolution of this issue. The next item that we have to discuss is we have a local law coming up at the end of May, which would provide new definitions for conditioned and unconditioned buildings, which would establish criteria for commercial street signs in the LI and GI districts, and which would provide new criteria for accessory structures, and which would provide new special use permit standards for mini warehouse, basically conditioned buildings on site.
Can we add accessory structures in the back of quarter-acre lots?
So the only thing that was changed on accessory structures was the definition of a shed compared to a definition of a private garage. Private garage is still at 800 square feet. Sheds were 200. We're adjusting it to 300 due to residents that seem to be getting into a situation that we're seeing more that would be coming to the ZBA for sizes of these sheds. The only difference is as soon as you went over 200 square feet, you would have to go to a non-combustible floor, which is quite the added expense to any shed. And the reason for that was not so if you stored a vehicle. Well, these sheds that are 220 square feet, 240 square feet, they're still not storing vehicles, but they would require this non-combustible floor. So by changing the definition to allow up to 300 allows some of these sheds that are coming, especially the ones that are coming half at a play area, half at storage, or some of them that are coming to pool areas to store all the pool equipment. We're seeing multiple uses for that. So we presented that to the town board. Again, it would still be a usable size. We're just changing the combustible floor requirement wouldn't kick in until 300 square feet.
I still don't think we should be putting detached garages in the back of quarter-acre lots, but that's just me. So. Okay, anything else, Ron? Oh, no, we're on the dam. Go ahead. Oh, I already checked it off. So Ron, we're still there.
I guess
I got my mind sidetracked.
no. The only other thing I want to point out is tomorrow, 11:30, students from Syracuse University are going to be making their senior presentation. There's a whole day long series of presentations by seniors over there in the architectural school, engineering school at Syracuse. We have one of those presentations, which is on the adjacent 50-acre parcel of land next door here to the west. They have some very unique ideas, some very good ideas, things that they add to the park and recreational programs that some we don't have, some that we do have to meet additional demands on what we have. So anybody who wants to zoom in on that meeting, give me a call in the morning and I'll give you the contact information. You're off and running. Doug is making arrangements to get a presentation of that captured so that we can show it at a future town board meeting.
Cool. And what time would it be?
11:30
Plus or minus. That's-
following some, I don't know, some grocery store down in Wilmington, Delaware, I don't know.
Anything else, Ron?
No, that's it.
Hi, Dan.
All right, quick update, your next meeting, you have the special use permit for the ag use, not ag use,
Business.
yes,
A construction equipment repair and painting.
that's the one. So, and then you have the Bowerman 2-lot subdivision on Crowley Road. And then, those are the only two things on for the next meeting. So my question is, should we recircle back to what John Robitello sent out about that we needed to review some documents?
MTOD,
I think that was the one that,
MTOD, MSOD, right? Yeah, I think we ought to review it, get it done, get it out of here
all right.
for the year, otherwise we'll be bumping up on doing it twice in 6 months. You know,
I'll put that on for your.
Okay.
agenda.
all right. And get, resend out any documents for review, so in case somebody can't find them, probably me, we can resurface them.
All right.
Yeah.
Other two things I wanted to report on, the first one was the M3 always lot. We talked about the large topsoil pile that was out front. As I said, was because it has been removed. It wasn't on the site plan in the correct location. Thanks to this board, in comments here, we brought that to their attention and told them that they had to put topsoil in the right spot, and they opted, instead of moving it again, to remove it all from site because they didn't need it. So that has been taken care of, and so we're good there.
My only comment there was the same thing I said to Dan earlier. Let's make sure they stabilize those pads as they move forward doing the rest of the work. Make sure they stabilize those pad areas because they won't be touched until they get some development on them. They'll do the parking lot, but the rest of the pads need to be stabilized.
Yeah, and that's something that we're gonna address at PRC this Friday.
I'll be there.
The other project that has been of concern was the GLM project. If you have driven by there, you'll notice that it still is very open, and they are starting to get some straw out there. They're having a lot of issues because of how wet it is out there, and some of their frost is still in the ground, and they sunk a lot of equipment, but they are trying to address that and get it all stabilized. So,
I noticed they got some straw out there.
yeah, not
Along the
nearly
edge,
enough.
not a whole lot, but they got some.
And they start. We're out there again tomorrow, and then we'll be addressing it at PRC on Friday.
Okay.
That's all I have to report.
Okay, Tim. Oh, I'm sorry. Tim Highway.
You saw the flags were out, you mentioned to me
Yep.
about switching on.
Yep, looks very nice.
And, our mowing has started, plowing the mowing now, so starting mowing grass, mowing the roadside. Town line road, they're getting close to getting the water line in on the one side, but we moving to the other side. In a couple weeks, we'll probably do some milling and shimming up there. Get ready to prep the paint, to pave the road. And third thing is, this weekend is spring cleanup.
Yeah.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Cool.
So,
Did you put the bench in yet?
the bench should be up over here. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I wasn't sure. I didn't even think to look today. Because we think we took it out for the winter, didn't
Yeah,
we?
took it out
Yeah.
for the winter. They did put it in when they put.
Perfect. I kind of figured they did, but I just wanted to ask. It didn't happen to know. I was more interested in flags. Okay, thanks. Lance.
I really don't have anything new to report to you guys. I think staff covers a lot of the projects that we are currently working on or I have involvement on, so I'll defer back to Mr. Brand on it.
I have two things that I forgot.
Go ahead.
Number one, the 1816 Quaker Meeting House.
Yes.
Up here on Sheldon Road.
You got that date right, Ron? Is it 1816?
Yeah. Some people like to have 1812, when there was a Spanish War.
Hey,
You know,
some.
Anyhow, they were awarded a grant from the U.S. Department of Parks National Heritage Program in the total amount of $487,000 plus
Nice.
to move forward with the restoration of the Quaker Meeting House property. So that is great news for that building. Just trivia, you know, that's the largest pre-canal building still standing in Western New York. So it's been used in the past for Underground Railroad. It's been used in the past for women's rights. It's been used in the past for Native American issues. It's a blessing that they have been able to get this funding. And I understand Dan is going to be joining them actively on their board as they pursue how to develop that site out there. So
Lucky guy you are.
he is a great man, I'm telling you.
So yes, I have reached out to them. I'm in a meeting with them, with their executive board tomorrow and their full board next week. I didn't realize how many meetings they had, but,
or how many they're gonna have.
So I'm trying to get up to speed on everything they got going on, but.
I worked with him years ago, years.
But it's,
I'm glad he got some funding. I mean, it's been an issue since day one.
yeah, but you've got to walk carefully with all that funding.
Oh, yeah, and you gotta jump through hoops and you got puppet strings here and there. You know. All right, anything else, Ron?
Yeah, there was, but it's gone. It's pretty-
You'll remember it by the time we
I'll call you tomorrow morning.
Okay. Okay, public comments. Any additional public comments, anyone? Okay. From my standpoint, working with the staff, working well, we're addressing these issues. Like I said, my familiarity with Safeway was because I've gone over it about 10 times with different people over the last week. So, jump right in there if you've got any issues. Other than that, I don't have anything I can think of. You don't have any public comments? Board, anybody got any comments? Go
I
ahead.
got two things.
Okay.
Beaver Creek Park, the playground. When is that gonna be open? What are we waiting?
Next year.
Well, the existing one right now,
Yeah,
well, as soon as the grass is established enough to let them walk around.
okay,
That's all we're waiting on, for the grass to grow.
okay. And then,
We have many other parks, just so you're aware.
I guess by the kids.
It's in his backyard, come on.
As far as the minutes from last meeting, I wasn't here, so I have to take back my second.
Oh, yeah.
I was gonna bring that up too.
Okay, Adrian did the second, or
No,
you did the
I-
first. Doug did the second thing.
And then
You can figure it out.
And I abstained.
And he abstained. All right,
That's all I have.
Adrian,
that's all I had.
Doug, Tim, nope. Okay, motion to adjourn by Adrian, seconded by Aaron. All in favor? Aye.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.